welcome to the channel. I'm your host, the Outdated Gen Z. So I just want to get right into it. This time I'm going to be talking about my bad opinions on the Sonic CD soundtrack. Again, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because, for one, some people's music tastes change over time, but another reason is because I don't think that video was really good. That video was originally rushed as all hell, so this time I'm actually going to take my sweet time with it. Hell, I'm even going to take my sweet time talking about all of these tracks. This is part 1 of 4. Maybe I'll do a part 5 if I can figure out something fun to do with the past tracks of Sonic CD, but, you know, it's not really easy to do because they were never changed in the North American soundtrack. To start off this first round of Wags' Game Music War, a new spin-off I've just made up for Wags' Game War, I'm going to be talking about the present tracks of Sonic CD. So I want these songs to be very toe-and-toe to decide on which one I like better, so I'm going to be using the definitive way to listen to all these songs: the Missing Music Restoration mod for the PC version of Sonic CD. But as well, I did slightly edit these tracks to my own liking, like for example, setting the remastered unused loops to be more in line with the 2011 remake versions of the unused loops in the Japanese soundtrack, and as well added even more Sonic the Hedgehog Boom album stuff to the North American soundtrack. So yeah, I said I would keep this intro quick, but it certainly wasn't, so let's just get this war started. Just as a warning to any music lovers out there is no music theory in this video. This is literally just a video dedicated to me saying, oh, I prefer this song over this song because I think it's kinda cool. Of course, it's gonna be more in depth than that, but don't expect anything super crazy like that. But to make up for it, I will be playing the entirety of the song before I explain which one I like better. Sure, I might get copyrighted for it, but it's not like I'm getting paid for anything right now. But you can change that by hitting subscribe. Only subscribe if you want to. But okay, let's just get right into it, starting with Palmtree Panic. Now, to be honest, I love both of these tracks. The Japanese one is a fantastic way to begin Sonic CD. It just sounds so exciting. But the North American one is nothing to skip out on either. It goes all in on the tropical theme of the, Palmtree. While I think the Japanese song fits better for a Palmtree Panic, I do think the North American soundtrack kind of eases you into Sonic CD in a sort of special way. I know that sounds really dumb, this is gonna get a lot of hate. On to Collision Chaos. Japanese one is better. Okay. To give the North American soundtrack some credit with Collision Chaos, it is a really relaxing tune. But the problem is, for a stage called Collision Chaos, it shouldn't really be that chill, you know? Like, it's still not fully that chill, but come on. Could have done something a little bit more exciting for a Collision Chaos, by the way. So yeah, I am still human, so the Japanese soundtrack wins Collision Chaos. On to Tidal Tempest. Okay, I know I promised not to do stuff like this, but I do think the North American soundtrack is better because it's cooler. The Japanese song is still incredible. So many amazing melodies in the song. And of course that added detail of water noises in the beginning is just, oh, cherry on top. But the North American soundtrack always had some sort of special vibe with me. The beat is just so funky, you know? Plus I feel like with the slight bits of vocals that this song has, kinda gives it that water level vibe. I don't know how to describe it, but the way those La La Loos were sung just felt so water level. On to Quartz Quadrant. Yes, my favorite zone in Sonic CD. I'm so lucky that I have two awesome tracks for this amazing zone. Not only in the Japanese soundtrack do we have a nice, beautiful, beautiful track that you just can't really describe, but it's just fucking beautiful. It holds a special nostalgic value to me, you could say. Just something about it brings back a lot of memories of whatever, even stuff that isn't Sonic CD related at all. I just randomly think about it when I'm listening to this song. It just really gets your thoughts going, you know? And then with the North American soundtrack, we get a fucking awesome rock metal track for, I'm pretty sure, the first time in the entire series. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was at least the first true metal slash rock song, you could say, because it's CD quality now. But I can't lie, I prefer the Japanese one a lot more than the North American one. You can't beat the Japanese Quartz Quadrant, man. On to Wacky Workbench. Alright, so just hopping in right away. The Japanese one, it's incredible. It captures the Wacky Workbench aesthetic perfectly, but I think the North American one does too. Just to mention this now, at one point the vocals almost sounds like it's laughing at you because of the bullshit level design Wacky Workbench has. And also, I think the North American version fits well in a real-life factory. Wacky Workbench in Japanese only fits with the Wacky Workbench in Sonic CD, while I think the North American soundtrack both fits with Sonic CD, of course, but also with a real factory, as I said. But you can make the argument that the Japanese soundtrack fits well with a real factory as well. I don't think it really does, because the Japanese soundtrack I only associate with bouncy floors, and I don't think real factories tend to have bouncy floors. But let's move on to Stardust Speedway, shall we? Okay, this is another easy one. This is usually going to the Japanese soundtrack. But to give the North American soundtrack some credit again, and honestly way more credit than what Collision Chaos had, I do think that this version of Stardust Speedway still fits fairly well. Of course, I would 100% associate Stardust Speedway as more of a party kind of place, because there's literally stage lights in the background and the foreground, but minus the stage lights part, the North American soundtrack fits like a glove otherwise. But yeah, you just can't beat that her. So this goes to the Japanese soundtrack. But let's move on to the final two songs I'm going to be putting against each other. Metallic Madness. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, this is kind of a toughie. I think both of these tracks fit perfectly for a final level, especially for a Sonic game with this being, you know, Robotnik's base. And yeah, I think both of these tracks truly represent what region they came from. Cause for one, Robotnik in Japan, or I guess Eggman, was a lot more of a silly kind of villain than here in North America at the time. He was taken a lot more serious as an actual, you know, threat, minus the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog TV show at the time. But you can't beat that rapping, so this is going to the Japanese soundtrack, let's be honest. go, that was my opinion on all the present tracks from Sonic CD. I will be keeping track of the score throughout this entire series, so by part 4, we'll fully be able to tell which soundtrack I definitively like better. But yeah, feel free to tell me your opinions down below, or don't, it doesn't really matter to me. But for now, I'll see you in the next one, and the one after that.